Hello there and welcome to the next episode in the Versus series. If you've already been watching these episodes or you are watching the playlist, hello. These episodes are designed to take two different factions that would never normally meet because they exist in two completely different universes, smush them against each other and see who would win. The only general rule is that their technology has to be able to affect one another. So if one faction utilizes projectile weapons and the other faction uses energy weapons, they still have to be able to harm one another. Otherwise, I keep their forces, dispositions, technological levels the same. Whatever FTL they use, that's the one they use. If they have shields, they have shields. If they don't have shields, they don't have shields. However their technology works, generally, that's how they operate. So with that part out of the way, who is this episode on? If you didn't know from clicking on the title, we are looking at the Wraith from the Stargate franchise versus the Chigs from the Space Above and Beyond franchise. Before we get started into these two titans of, well, evil, please like, share, subscribe and comment down below, and please hit the bell notification icon if you enjoy the episodes in this series or other episodes on the channel, and it'll keep you up to date with all uploads in the future. With that said, let's get started with the basic breakdown of each of the two factions. We'll start with the Chigs. Chigs are a humanoid species that are, spoiler alert, actually distantly related to humans, much like the Wraith. Also spoiler alert. But it's a little different. They evolved, just like the Wraith did, separate to humans. Basically, genetic material from Earth somehow found its way to the Chig homeworld and they evolved. They look kinda human with like dark soulless eyes, but their technology is a lot more advanced than standard human tech within their own universe. Their ships are biomechanical and utilize some kind of high energy weapons. They're very good at fighting near gravity wells, which human vessels in their universe are less good at. Their weapons are more powerful, but they're not as smartly armed as human ships, but I would say they're comparable probably to their Wraith counterparts. They have extremely high acceleration, but are a little slow in the turns, so their maneuverability isn't great. They rely very heavily on fighter-style warfare, with carriers and a few escort ships coming along with them. The exact disposition of the Chig fleet is unknown, in other words, how many ships they have isn't clear, but their fleet isn't massive. It's not huge. They're not a galaxy-spanning empire. Their ships mostly travel at sub-light velocities. FTL is only accomplished with the Chigs with some kind of wormhole propulsion, which, disclaimer, I'm not entirely sure how that works in universe, as the show was cancelled and it never really went into any great detail. Human vessels get around by utilizing natural wormholes, as far as I can ascertain, but there must be others the Chigs are using as well. I don't know if they're natural or they're artificially created. And the Chigs are more advanced than humans, so they could be artificial. But it isn't clear. So, without definitive proof that the Chig can create wormholes to get around, they don't actually have a form of FTL as a result. They have to use these wormholes, which I'm going to generously say maybe they can make, but they can't, just like the ship can't just make one and go through it. Maybe they can create one artificially, but once it's there, it's there. But I don't think they can just, like a hyperdrive, just kind of jump through space. So their hyperdrives are a little weird. As in they don't have them. Their FTL is non-existent, pretty much. But their vessels are excellent at sublight. They also have pretty good stealth capabilities with advanced stealth fighters capable of jamming enemy sensors. They have advanced armor and energy weapons and tend to self-destruct or implode themselves if they're ever captured. Physically, they're not really any more durable than a human, and I'm also going to go out of the way and say they're probably close enough related to humans that a Wraith might be able to feed on one. So there's that as a factor, which is kind of gross and horrible for everyone involved except the Wraith. They don't have any shielding technology as far as we can tell, but their vessels can take one hell of a beating. They can take a lot of punishment and just keep on going. Their larger vessels are large blade-like ships in space that we don't really see them fight much, but we can assume they have the same, at least, styles of weapons as the smaller vessels, just a lot more of them and probably more powerful than what the fighters can carry. They also have mid-range bomber-type ships and assault craft that we see quite widely being used, as well as transports and armoured vehicles like a hover tank, which we also see them deploy on planetary surfaces. They're also very good at intelligence gathering, and seem to be a relatively patient people, observing humans for a very long time, before actually deciding to engage them. But when the Chigs do commit to battle, everyone's a combatant and they'll kill everything. They were willing to make alliances with the AIs that were enemies of humanity, meaning they can be negotiated with, but I don't think they're going to negotiate with a race of predatory alien vampires like the Wraith, so that's out of the question. And we're not having the AIs on their side and involved in this in any way either, so that's out of the question. Their government structure is comparable to that of Earth. We don't know if it's a democracy or a totalitarian regime, but it's definitely reminiscent of sort of at least Earth-style governments. You can talk to them, you can negotiate with them, and there is definitely a military hierarchical structure which is overseen by some kind of potentially civilian government, but it's not entirely clear again because we don't really get to see much of the inner workings of Chig society. Next we have the Wraith. The Wraith, again, are a half-human hybridish species. Hybrid-ish because, like the Chigs, they evolved separately to humans but are related to them. They're bipedal, humanoid species that are vampiric in nature. They can only feed on humans and Lanteans. I'm assuming they can probably feed on primates on Earth or other worlds where primates might exist in both the Pegasus and Milky Way galaxies because they're near human as well. But they can also feed on each other, so cannibalism is an option. They do it, even though they can ingest food like a human, their digestive system stops working when they are teenagers, so they switch to their new source of food. Unlike a Chig that probably has a normal human lifespan, a Wraith is immortal. As long as it's not severely injured, doesn't become ill, and remains nourished, they will literally live, as far as we can tell, forever, or at the very least, at the bare minimum, for about 10,000 years. Quite happily without a problem. Their feeding apparatus is actually on their hand, and there's a slit that when they attach to you, they put a paralyzing agent in you and they suck the life out of you, seemingly. They actually sort of desiccate all your cells and suck you up like they drink your blood kind of thing. They're gross. They're also all telepathic with different levels of strength, with the queens being strong because they're an insect-like people as they evolved from a creature called the Eratus bug that originally fed on humans. The ancients allowed to evolve on the home world of the Eratus bug, and when humans spread into the area where the bugs lived, the bugs fed on them. The queen bugs ingested human DNA, bear in mind humans were not native to the planet, so it was like an ingestion of alien DNA to them. And possibly also feeding on primates that were there, because we do know the ancients, as we evolved from primates, the ancients, you've got to take it as canon that the ancients put primates on worlds in both the Milky Way and Pegasus galaxies, on the planets where they encouraged human life to evolve. So therefore, they must have fed on other things, but they basically carried on evolving to become human, but now had a Eratus bug DNA, and it was them that were evolving to be human. The humans on their world eventually died out, and you were just left with the Wraith, who somehow got their hands on Lantean knowledge and science to a degree. Their ships again are biomechanical. The most common type of vessel is a hive ship, but it is often probably outnumbered. Actually, it's probably outnumbered by the cruisers that are its escorts, but the most powerful, should I rephrase, is the hive ship. Hive ship is a gigantic vessel, a big wedge in space similar to a star destroyer, filled with fighters. They operate like the Chigs as sort of carrier groups, with a hive ship or multiple hive ships operating as a center, escorted by cruisers that help to defend them. All the ships carry darts. The darts are extremely fast, but again not great at turning, armed with energy weapon little fighters that can actually move through the stargates if they need to. The darts, though, again, they're not great at maneuvering, they're not good at banking, but they're capable of atmospheric entry, operation, and in space they also have a type of beaming technology on them, which is something the Chigs lack. The energy weapon is probably just as strong as that used by the Chigs, but is also rapid fire, and the hive ships have a lot of them, with each hive ship having a good 100,000 Wraith on boarded quite happily, most likely, because they really pack them in on those things if they need to. The Wraith government structure is a little loose. The queens are not necessarily the ones in charge, but they tend to be the de facto leaders. They're unified as a people as long as there's not something dividing them, but Wraith are very sectarian and will infight if food is short or resources are scarce or someone just wants a little bit of power. The exact disposition of their forces isn't clear. In dialogue, it's indicated that there might only be about 60 or 70 hive ships, and you can assume maybe 3 cruisers for every hive ship, say. But that number doesn't make sense. I know they can grow the hive ships pretty quickly, but that number doesn't really make sense because they defeated the ancients, and the ancients were destroying those ships bang, 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 bang. There's simply no way. There has to have been more. But in dialogue, that's indicated. But that's indicated by humans that don't really know. That's just what they think based on what Atlantis can detect, and they're not exactly using Atlantis to its full potential. So I'm going to assume the Wraith fleet is much bigger than that. Probably far larger than that of the Chigs. Also, they actually have proper FTL, but it is limited. Although they have hyperdrive technology, their ships being biomechanical have to drop out of hyperspace periodically. They're also not that quick, taking days or weeks or potentially even months to traverse the entire galaxy. Far slower than what the Chig vessels can get around using the near instantaneous travel of the wormholes. However, the wormholes could easily be sat on and guarded by the Chigs. Let's bear that in mind, by the Wraith rather, and by the Chigs actually. Whereas the Wraith can jump in and out of hyperspace wherever they want, as often as they want. So, yeah, they're slower, but they can control it, whereas the Chigs can't. Numerically, there are probably fewer Wraith than there are Chig. The Chig homeworld is similar to Earth. Their technology is very advanced and they're very old. There are likely billions of them. It's unconfirmed, but it's a bit of inductive reasoning. It's probably correct. There are likely billions, whereas the Wraith probably only number in the millions. So there is a numerical discrepancy. In terms of their fighting capabilities, Wraith's infantry utilize stun weapons, although lethal weapons are available. They wear armor, but it's nowhere near as comprehensive as that of the Chigs. And although they do carry and have communications technology because they're telepathic, they can coordinate on the battlefield more rapidly. Chigs require technology to aid them in that, like humans do. So, superficially, they're actually quite similar. They both utilize carrier group-like formations of starships. The Chigs have probably the edge, I think, on ground. They have better armoured vehicles, although those would be easy targets for darts. The Chigs also, like the Chigs and the Wraith, neither one of them have shielding capabilities. Or if the Wraith have it, they don't really widely use it. They do have camouflage capability, but they don't actually have shields to protect themselves. They rely on hull regeneration and great redundancy of their technology. Whereas the Chigs rely on maneuverability and durability. So they're very similar. Neither one having shields, both basically expected to try and dodge fire and weather it when they get hit. So, again, extremely similar. In space combat, it's hands down going to the Wraith on that, I think. On the ground, I would wager the Chigs have numbers, and the Chigs have better armour, and more destructive man-portable weapons on average. So I think that kind of campaign is going to go to them. The Wraith also have access to the Stargates, but because there won't be any Stargates in Chig space unless they're willing to bring them in and drop them there, probably not much of an advantage anyway. Also, bit of a danger, because if the Chigs are as progressive with wormhole technology as I suspect they are, probably not a good idea to give them access to Stargates. Just saying. But let's see how these two factions would match up in a theoretical conflict. And let me know in the comment section below who you think is going to win before I reach the end of the video and I give my thoughts. Alright, so how do I see this campaign happening? I see the Wraith being the ones looking for new feeding grounds, expanding into Chig territory. Finding Chigs, the near-human species, they determined that Chigs can be fed upon. By this point, the Wraith are kind of starving, so they're going to reunite and they're going to come hard at the Chigs. They're going to invade their territory. They're going to hit the outer worlds first, but they're going to hit hard resistance because Chig ships, this isn't like pushing over puny humans on various little backwaters who don't have any kind of technology to send back up at you. The Chigs have starships. They've got vessels just as big as the Hive ships, or near enough, and just as well armed. Their fighters are just as fast, just as well armed, just as maneuverable, and just as durable, if not a little more so, than theirs are. But they also have better stealth capabilities, running rings around them. Wraith ships are large, lumbering beasts, whereas Chig vessels, even the bigger ships, are quite maneuverable comparatively to the, again, very lumbering Hive ships. And it's home field advantage here. The Chigs know the locations of all their wormholes. It initially allows them to move forces around rapidly, with the Wraith not entirely sure how the Chigs are moving around. Used to hyperspace technology, they can't see how they're moving about. The early wins will go to the Wraith. They'll attack the outer worlds of the Chigs. They'll occupy them and attack them and begin culling them. But this will quickly turn about as the Chigs are masters of both stealth warfare and mass mobilization. They are able to deploy forces very heavily and entrench themselves around their planets, making the Wraith culling difficult, forcing the Wraith into a war of attrition, just like they did with the Lanteans, to try and break the Chigs. Unlike the Lanteans, their technology is relatively comparable, and the two will fight it out until one is effectively going to grind the other one down, We know the Chigs are no more willing than humans to take on large casualties, but they are willing to do it as long as they are winning. But against an enemy like the Wraith, defeat is not an option. So the Chigs are going to just keep coming hard and fast at the Wraith. And the Wraith are going to keep coming hard and fast at them because it's also a matter of their survival. They need food, and they're running out of humans. The Chigs can be eaten, and there's billions of them. That's a feeding ground they can't turn down. Once the Wraith learn how the Chigs are moving their ships around using wormholes, however, as I said, they're going to start isolating these wormholes. And if the Chigs can't make new wormholes quick enough, or possibly at all, but let's assume they can, with the Wraith's ability to run rings around them, they start to just simply have their fleet put a few hive ships right in front of the wormhole. Maybe they even mine it. They surround it with darts, and every time the Chigs try and come through, they're just bottlenecked and they're picked off in the entranceway, forcing the Chigs to isolate their battle groups into various different sectors of space, making it very difficult for resupply and support force actions. The Wraith, in the meantime, have begun making new ships. We know the Wraith can breed Wraith and grow ships very quickly. Now they have a large abundant food supply. It's now worth it to increase their number again and begin building ships quickly. Because the Chigs have been isolated, because they're being ground down, I think they're giving as good as they get. For every hive ship destroyed, the Chigs lose a ship. I think it's a war where both sides are going to lose ships at a similar rate, but with the Chigs being isolated and making it difficult for them to move people and resources around, the Wraith are going to have the advantage. They're going to start to increase in number, and they're going to encounter the same problem the Ancients did and not be able to destroy enough Wraith. They're just going to keep coming, and with their hyperdrive capabilities to run rings around them, although be it a primitive hyperdrive comparatively to other races, it's going to give the Wraith such a massive advantage. Eventually they're going to reach the Chig homeworld and they're going to force a capitulation. It's not going to be pretty either. They'll cull the planet. They'll destroy any ship they find. They'll kill all the soldiers. They'll cull every last man, woman and child they can find to be food. And eventually the Chigs will become just another food supply for the Wraith, allowing the Wraith to dominate now probably 2 galaxies. So basically I'm giving this victory to the Wraith. I think they're a far superior enemy. Although their technology on every other level is very similar, I think the advantages of the hyperdrive is giving the Wraith too many advantages. Home field advantage, home field strength is not going to the Chigs, not for a long protracted war. I think numerically they start out similar, but the Wraith can just reproduce and build ships too quickly. And the Chigs becoming isolated, it'll allow them to be picked off. Maybe they even learn how to destroy the wormholes. I don't think retaliation is even an option because they can't reach the Wraith's bases of operation. Plus the Wraith are very mobile people staying on their ships for the most part. I don't think they'll be able to kill them fast enough because the Ancients couldn't do it. I don't see the Chigs being able to do it. So there's my conclusion. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Who do you think would come out on top? Do you think the Chigs, with perhaps better tactics, maybe forcing the Wraith into a grinding, grueling war of attrition, would actually have an advantage, give the Chigs a bit of breathing room to make a wormhole that go deeper into Wraith territory and destroy their shipyards or whatever they have where they grow their ships, and maybe with their cloning facilities? Let me know in the comment section below if you made it out in the video. Thank you for watching. That is the end of this episode. Bye bye.